I will just say once again, good morning, Ambassador Mohau Pheko. Thank you so much. Before we go any further, I'd like to just ask your permission to do a video recording of your presentation here on Skype. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Well, we welcome you. We really missed having you be with us at Pan African Women's Day in August, and I have children, so I understand what's going on. I know the look. And they're all grown now, and that happens too, so be encouraged. But
No, thank you very, very much, sister. Allow me to greet all the sisters and to say how happy I am to see the revolutionary spirit really going strong. I know that we've all gone through tough times during our revolutions all over the African continent, all over the African world, wherever Africans are. But I think that the spirit of ensuring that we keep struggling, but I think now struggle more strategically and really begin to locate our struggles in many spaces that we have not always been willing to confront. And I think that we need new tools. We need new words. We need new and stronger language for the struggles of African people all over the world now, especially for African women. I think that more than ever, because in a sense, it is our time and it is our century, that the backlash is much harder than it has been, in my view, for the past few decades. And I think they're much harder now than they were even 20, 30, even 40 years ago, because we're so close and because so many women are beginning to find and take up space in so many different areas of our economy, so many different areas of leadership, and more young women need to be encouraged to enter this terrain. So it's a great privilege for me to come and just have a quick chat about some of the things that I would have wanted to share in August. It's September, but that's okay. I think that we will certainly still be able to, I think, locate a few discussions within the space that we need to encourage one another. I want to talk a little bit today about the role that science and technology plays on the African continent, particularly focusing on the importance that it plays for African women. We are the richest continent in the world. And already, if one looks at how the media has been reporting Africa, many will remember that in the 70s, we were the lost continent. We were a dead continent, the dark continent. And then just in the middle of the 90s, the story started to change slightly. That suddenly we were, yes, conflict ridden and we were corrupt as a continent. But now there was a spark of hope. And as we go into the 21st century, Time magazine, The Economist magazine, all of a sudden we're the rising continent. And we are the continent of hope. We are the next frontier to save the global economy. So it's very strange, because for those of us who have been in struggle, Africa has always been the rising continent. It's always been a continent of hope. African people all over the world have always had hope in themselves. So we're happy that those who are coming into the fold now are finally discovering what we've known all along in the first place. I also think it's that we're at a very treacherous time in the African continent, because there is this new realization that people now have an awareness that there is so much wealth. They've always known, but of course, their own propaganda has limited them entering. We're at a treacherous time because so much of our resources, our natural resources, our human resources, are really under serious attack as an African continent. They took so many of our people away during the slave trade, so many, millions, the worst genocide in the world. And yet, nobody talks about the impact that this had on our human resources. And in the same way today, we continue to have the same raping of our human resources from the African continent. And now they call it brain drain. But it's quite severe. It's more than just a brain drain. It is a deeper level of underdevelopment for the African continent by taking away the people who can actually innovate, who can come up with new products, who can really turn our continent into one of the best continents in the entire world. And so science and technology plays such a critical point for where we are today. If one looks at natural resources, for example, where Africa is extremely rich, if you look at our need for energy, if we are able to harness many of our own natural resources to create renewable energies, now I'm not talking about mineral resources, I'm just talking about the nanotechnologies that we can find around our seas that can actually create natural, clean energy for our countries. And as women, we need to study what is happening in the sea. The blue economy, as they call it now, is such a fundamental part of the future of our children. And so not only does it harness the potential for energy, the fabrics that we all wear, textiles, what is in the sea today, we can create new fibers, stronger fibers, not only for clothing, but for protective clothing, for insulation, for all sorts of things, for carpeting, all made from natural resources. So we have to begin to broaden even the way we look at the sea as such an important resource for ourselves. I am privileged to serve here in Japan. These people are innovators. What they are doing with their ocean, because they are surrounded by water. This is an island, a small island country. But they are experimenting with using the waves of the ocean to generate energy into their electric grid. And when you look at the African continent, it's surrounded by water all around it. And so if we were able to harness that kind of resource, imagine the kind of natural energy we would be able to bring to so many communities across the African continent. So it is really beginning to think through these things very, very carefully, very, very strategically, and encouraging many young women to enter these new fields of marine sciences. Very, very important. We are the custodians of fishing as women on the African continent. If you go up West Africa, we are the ones who sell that fish. We cook that fish. We grill that fish. We do all sorts of things with it. But we need to now think of how do we process this fish so that we can preserve it? How do we bring back a lot of the ways that we preserved food long ago and bring those methodologies back? So, particularly in light of the fact that food security is such a challenge for us now on the African continent when it does not need to be. So these are the things that we really, really need to think about when we look at the blue economy in particular and looking at blue science, very fundamental for our future. The other area that I want to really talk about is the area of climate change and how climate change is fundamentally destroying livelihoods and the way that we have lived, I think, on the African continent. As temperatures rise, we are seeing mosquitoes, we are seeing cholera, we are seeing diseases that had literally been removed from certain areas and certain countries and certain spatial areas. And these are coming back now as with global warming and with changes in climate. You're seeing mosquitoes that would never have been at very high levels altitude, but they are beginning to reach there because it's getting warmer and warmer. But I think what is even more fundamental is the manner in which global warming and climate change are changing the whole area of food security. If it is not too much rain, it is too much sun. The seasons are all over the place. It's not so much that you can no longer plant, but it's just that you no longer know what season even to plant in. And this has had such a huge impact on smallholder farmers or smallholder family farmers that feed themselves as well as sell to communities near them. It has completely killed the agricultural sector in many African countries. If you look at the backbone of many of our countries, women hold up the agricultural sector. They not only work the field, they not only breed the seeds, they not only create all the new varieties. We've always been scientifically knowledgeable. We've always had our indigenous technologies as women. But there are many key issues that are confronting us now. You have Monsanto, which along with three other grain companies based in the US, literally control 95% of agriculture in the world today. And I'm not just talking about selling seeds only, but what they're doing is they're buying up tracts and tracts of land throughout the African continent, planting these GMO seeds in various countries. And many of their seeds now are seeds that you cannot cultivate for the next season. This is a capitalist system that makes sure that you're always beholden to them to buy seeds. Now, for generations, we have saved seeds. We have passed on seeds. We have made sure that we chose the best varieties. But now you have these huge companies that are coming in. South Africa has done this as well. We have a huge GMO maize that is coming into the market, GMO cotton that is also making its way through many African countries. And so when we think of science and technology, we don't often think that the woman who may not have a lot of education, who has had this technology passed on to her for generations, is knowledgeable, is an intellectual. We don't regard this as knowledge. And part of the fight for us as women is to fight to restore that indigenous knowledge and make indigenous knowledge part, in fact, I would even say, quite separate from what is considered intellectual knowledge today, because much of what is considered intellectual knowledge and patented is actually pirated knowledge. It's stolen knowledge, and it is knowledge that has not been created. And so people are patenting things that are already existing in society, and use and through the capitalist system, this is now utilized as their knowledge to service their economy, while denying millions of people the same privilege, because we are unable to write down the characteristics that go into many of the creations that have been made for generations in the area of science and technology by women in the agricultural sector. So the threat of the big grain companies not only controlling now the farming, they're controlling the distribution, they're controlling the marketing, right up to how we consume these goods. So what is happening is, years ago, when I talked to my mother, for example, when they talked about vegetables, they had about 15 to 20 vegetables during their time. When we talk about vegetables to our children, we're talking about spinach, cabbage, carrots, lettuce, potatoes. It's down to 5. It's shrinking. The varieties of vegetables that you can find in the marketplace now is shrinking more and more, and it's seasonal, because certain times of the year you cannot find certain goods in the marketplace. So we need to encourage more indigenous knowledge to enter into our space in terms of how we discuss and define science and technology, in order to reclaim the space where women used to create more varieties, where women used to do the breeding of seeds, where women used to produce so many varieties of vegetables and fruits. So we've got to reclaim that space more and more. And that is going to mean fighting these huge grain companies. And there are many campaigns out there that are certainly doing this. And I think that as African women, we need to latch into these campaigns, become part of those campaigns, and ensure that in our communities we educate our people about what is happening to us. Much of the food that is coming on the market now is horrible for us. It's terrible food. And so we've really got to reclaim that space as African women, as the controllers of food production, as the distributors and the marketers of food production. But we need, again, young women to enter this area of indigenous knowledge and create the necessary research to prove that the methodologies that we've always had are the methodologies that are necessary to preserve food security and to preserve the future of the African people. The next area that I really want to talk about is the area of space. I know when I first encountered this area, I thought, God, why should we be interested in the area of space, in the area of astronomy as women? Well, if you each of us look at our cell phones, without astronomy, we wouldn't have a cell phone. So many scientific inventions have actually been made through astronomy. And it has become even more important now for Africa, for us to enter into the area of space. I'm not sure how many of us are aware of the number of satellites that are floating around for all kinds of reasons up there in the sky, many of them even crashing sometimes. Many countries now are fighting for space up in our galaxies. We need to enter that space as Africa. We need to be up in space in order for us to collect our own information at many different levels. One, we have all sorts of pirates, and I'm not talking about Somalian pirates. I'm talking about Italian pilots, I'm talking about Norwegian pilots, I'm talking about Japanese pirates, I'm talking about those pirates who nobody wants to talk about, who are fishing our seas and stealing all of our marine resources. And because we do not have the satellite capacity to assess and look at what is happening from an angle up in the sky, we are losing billions. I mean, billions. While they are sitting, preserving their seas and cultivating them, allowing and saying that there'll be no fishing for so many years until their fish can begin to produce, they are literally raping our seas. And so we need this capacity to be able to see in order to begin protecting our own seas. Many of our countries depend on these very countries to give us the information. So you know what it's like when somebody is giving you information, they're going to give you what they want you to have. So we need to have this capacity to be able to monitor